Folks, let me tell you something. There is a woman in Massachusetts, the Governor Maura Healey, who just signed a law allowing abortion all the way up to birth. All the way up to birth. And now, CatholicVote is calling on the bishops of Massachusetts to consider excommunication. And I have to say, my friends, I have not seen a political story this week that cuts more directly to the bone of what this country is actually fighting about. We are not fighting about tax rates, folks. We are not fighting about committee assignments. We are fighting about whether a civilization has any limits at all. Whether there is any point at which a society looks in the mirror and says, enough. Maura Healey just told us where she stands. And the Catholic Church, bless them, is apparently considering telling her where they stand. I'm Rick LeBeau. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, my friends, let's get into this. Let's really get into it, because this story has everything. It has politics, it has religion, it has a governor who apparently thinks the word barbaric is a compliment, and it has the Catholic Church, an institution that has been dodging controversies for, about 2,000 years, suddenly being asked to actually draw a line in the sand. Now, for those of you just tuning in, here's what happened. Governor Maura Healey of Massachusetts, a Democrat naturally, signed legislation that allows abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. Not the first trimester, not the second, all 9 months, up to birth. Up to birth. And CatholicVote, which is a Catholic advocacy group, has now formally urged the bishops of Massachusetts to consider excommunication for the governor. Let me sit with this for a moment. You know, I've been behind this microphone a long time. And I've seen politicians do a lot of things that I found, let's say, instructive, illuminating, revealing of the true character of the modern left. But this one lands differently. This one isn't about tax policy or zoning regulations or whatever the bureaucrats are reclassifying this week. This is about as fundamental as it gets. We are talking about a human child in the 9th month of pregnancy, a child that, if born today, would be wrapped in a blanket and handed to a nurse and probably be just fine. And the law that Maura Healey signed says, well, we'll just leave that decision up to you. And the press? The drive-by media covered this the way they cover everything that makes them uncomfortable, which is to say, they didn't. Or if they did, they used words like reproductive rights and access to care until the whole thing sounds like a pamphlet from the Department of Health. They are absolutely magnificent at making the most extreme position in the room sound like it's a reasonable, measured, centrist, compassionate policy choice. Remarkable. With half my brain tied behind my back, I could still see through it. Now, the excommunication question. Let me talk about this, because I think a lot of people don't quite know what they're looking at here. Excommunication is not the church being mean. It's not some medieval punishment dreamed up to terrorize people. It is, in Catholic theology, the formal recognition that a person has publicly and persistently separated themselves from the teachings of the church to such a degree that continuing to pretend otherwise would be dishonest. It's the church saying, you can't have it both ways. You cannot stand at that podium and sign that bill and then walk into Mass on Sunday and receive communion and have everybody smile and nod along like nothing happened. And here's what I find fascinating about this moment. The question of whether Maura Healey should be excommunicated is essentially asking, does the church mean what it says? Does any institution mean what it says anymore? Because we live in an age, and I'm sure you've noticed this, where institutions say all kinds of things and then enforce absolutely none of them. We have universities with honor codes that apply to everyone except the people they like. We have governments with immigration laws that apply to everyone except the people they'd prefer to let in. And we have a Catholic Church that has been, let's be honest, somewhat reluctant to enforce its own moral teachings when the person in question is a prominent Democrat. Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Jean-Francois Kerry, the Breck boy of the diplomatic corps. Long line of Catholic Democrats who vote for and champion abortion. In some cases, abortion with absolutely no restrictions, and who continue to receive the sacraments without so much as a raised eyebrow from their local bishop. Now, I want to be fair here. There are bishops who have taken stands, and there are Catholic leaders who have been consistent and courageous. But as an institution, the Church has, let's say, preferred the path of gentle pastoral letters and quiet conversations to anything that might generate a headline. And so what CatholicVote is essentially doing is calling the bishop's bluff. They're saying, all right, a governor just signed a law permitting abortion at 9 months. If this doesn't cross the line, what does? Where is the line? Does the line exist? Is there a line? And that's a question worth asking, not just of the bishops, of all of us. Because here's the thing about the left's position on abortion. And I want to be very clear about this because the drive-by media will never say it plainly. The official position of the Democrat Party right now, today, in the year of our Lord 2026, is that there should be no legal restrictions on abortion whatsoever. None, at any point, for any reason. That is an extreme position. It was extreme in 1973. It was extreme in 2003. It is extreme now. And no amount of softening language, no amount of healthcare access framing, no amount of it's complicated from your favorite anchor on CNN, the Clinton News Network, changes what the thing actually is. Now, Maura Healey, it's about women's autonomy and reproductive freedom and the right to make your own healthcare decisions. Yes, I've heard it all. And I would point out that the same people who said your body, your choice during Roe v. Wade told you during COVID that your body was in fact subject to government mandate. Funny how that works. The left does not have a consistent philosophical principle here. What they have is a coalition. They have the feminist left, they have the secular left, they have the activist left, and they have the media left. And they all agree on abortion. And any Democrat who steps out of line on the issue gets primaried before they can finish their sentence. The party that lectures you constantly about listening to the science will not tolerate a single scientific question about fetal development that might complicate the narrative. And here's what's rich. Here's what I just absolutely love. And I say love in the way that a man loves watching a storm from a safe distance. Maura Healey is a Catholic. She is, at least nominally, a Catholic. And she just signed a bill that a significant portion of the worldwide Catholic Church, over 1 billion people, considers a profound moral atrocity. And the question being posed to the bishops is, do you treat her any differently than you'd treat any other Catholic in good standing? My friends, I don't know what the bishops will do. History suggests they'll write a thoughtful letter and schedule a dialogue. But I'll tell you what the moment represents, regardless of what they decide. It represents the fact that the American public is not actually as settled on this question as the left would have you believe. It represents the fact that there are still millions and millions of Americans for whom the protection of human life is not a political calculation. It is a moral conviction. And those people, my people, your people, the people who make this country run, they are not going away. The drive-by media will cover this as right-wing religious extremists trying to bully a governor. They'll find 3 former priests who support Maura Healey and put them on television. They'll run a chyron that says, Republican war on women continues. It's as predictable as the sunrise and about half as illuminating. But I'll tell you what isn't predictable, the 2026 midterms. And whether Democrats who have spent the last several years lurching as far left as humanly possible on this issue are going to find out the hard way that abortion up to birth is not, in fact, a winning message in states that are actually competitive. Don't doubt me on that. All right, the roundup. Let's move. A few stories that caught my eye this week and deserve your attention. First up, this one is just too good. Too good. I have this story right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, and it comes to us courtesy of the great state of Minnesota and its governor, Tim Walz. You remember Tim, Comrade Tim, Coach Walz, the man who managed to be both the dullest and the most terrifying vice presidential candidate in modern American history, which is saying something when you consider the competition. Well, Coach Walz has issued an order blocking copper-nickel mining near the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a good man, represents Minnesota, is out saying this will empower China and kill union jobs up on the Iron Range. And Emmer is absolutely right. Here's the thing about these environmental bans on American mining and drilling and production. The left loves to pretend that when they stop us from mining here, the minerals just don't get mined. Like the copper just sits there in appreciation. Like the nickel takes a deep breath of clean air and thanks Tim Walz personally. What actually happens, and this is not complicated, is that the mining happens in China, or the Congo, or in a country where environmental standards are essentially a suggestion and where child labor is not a political liability. We shut down our operations, they ramp up theirs. The left gets to feel good, the Iron Range loses jobs, China controls more of the critical minerals that go into electric vehicles and batteries, and here's the twist, the very green technology the left says we need. So Tim Walz banned the mining to protect the environment and handed the mining to China, whose environmental record makes a 1970 steel mill look like a national park. The union workers up in northern Minnesota, these are not country club Republicans, folks. These are working men and women, the kind of people Tim Walz used to pretend he championed. And he just handed their livelihoods to Beijing with an executive order. And I'm sure he feels wonderful about it. Now, a word on this. I'm not going to mock the idea of protecting beautiful wilderness. I understand the instinct. But there is a version of environmentalism that is actually about the environment. And then there is the version practiced by the modern left, which is about feeling morally superior while creating no actual solutions and offshoring every consequence to countries that don't care. That second version is what we have in Minnesota, and the workers of the Iron Range know it. All right, second story. Let's talk about the DSA leader who doesn't pay rent. My friends, I want you to pay very close attention to this one because it is, and I use this word deliberately, perfect. Gustavo Gordillo. He is a co-chair of the New York City chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. He is, according to his own public advocacy, a rent abolitionist. He believes, in principle, publicly, loudly, that rent should not exist, that tenants should not be required to pay landlords. This is his ideological position. He has presumably said this at meetings, on social media, at protests, wherever socialists gather to dream. He is now being sued for eviction because he stopped paying his rent on a Brooklyn apartment for $2,500 a month. You know, sometimes the universe just does the work for you. He is a rent abolitionist who is being evicted for not paying rent. And I want you to really sit with that for a second. He found a way to both live out his principles and stiff a landlord. Now that is dedication. That's the kind of commitment to ideology that you just don't see very often. Most people are hypocrites quietly. He did it publicly in Brooklyn and is now in court about it. Now, to be fair, and I always try to be fair with both hands tied behind my back and half my brain just to keep it sporting. Maybe Gordillo sees this as a form of activism. Maybe he's out here abolishing rent one unpaid month at a time. A one-man general strike against the landlord class. Or, and I'm just floating this out there, maybe it turns out that believing resources should be free doesn't actually make them free. That you can call something an abolition all you want, but eventually the person who owns the building wants to be paid. Who knew? Apparently everyone except Gustavo. This is what I have been telling you for decades. Liberalism is not a governing philosophy. It is a feelings philosophy. It is a set of beliefs that works beautifully at the level of the bumper sticker and collapses completely the moment it meets reality. The rent abolitionist found out what reality has to say about rent abolition. The answer apparently is, "Sir, you owe $2,500. And finally, quickly, Florida Democrat State Senate candidate Angie Nixon, who has compared ICE agents to modern-day slave catchers. Now, I've heard a lot of things said about ICE agents over the years, a lot of things. The drive-by media has called them all sorts of names, but modern-day slave catchers is a particularly remarkable piece of rhetoric, because what it does, and this is deliberate, don't think it isn't, it takes a law enforcement agency whose job is to enforce immigration law and equates them with the most morally reprehensible institution in American history. It's designed to make any defense of border enforcement sound like a defense of slavery. Full stop. That's the play. And the Florida Democrat Party is apparently comfortable with a candidate who says it. Remarkable. You know what ICE agents actually are? They are law enforcement officers enforcing federal law. Law that was passed by Congress. Law that was on the books long before Donald Trump arrived. They arrest people who are in this country illegally, including, and the press never mentions this part, people who have committed additional crimes after arriving. Drug traffickers, human traffickers, people with violent criminal records, modern-day slave catchers. I'll tell you what I think. I think Angie Nixon should spend about 45 minutes with an ICE agent on the job before she says it again. I think she'd learn something, though I'm not sure she'd want to. All right, my friends, before I let you go today, let me leave you with this. 3 stories. A governor signing abortion up to birth into law. A rent abolitionist being evicted for not paying rent. A Democrat candidate calling law enforcement agents slave catchers. And I haven't even gotten to Tim Walz handing Minnesota's critical minerals to China in the name of saving the planet. What's the through line? What connects all of it? It's this. The American left has completely lost the thread of what most Americans actually believe, actually want, and actually live. They are operating in a closed loop. The academy, the media, the activist class, where the most extreme position is always the correct one, and any pushback is evidence of bigotry rather than evidence that normal people exist. They think excommunication discussions are what the radical right is doing. They don't seem to understand that a majority of Americans, including a whole lot of Democrats, are uncomfortable with a 9-month abortion. They think abolishing rent is visionary policy. They don't understand that most Americans believe if you sign a lease, you pay the rent. They think comparing ICE to slavery is courageous truth-telling. They don't understand that most Americans, including a lot of immigrants, want the border enforced. They are not listening to the country. And the country, my friends, is starting to notice. The midterms are here. The all-knowing, all-sensing, all-seeing Maha Ricky has been around long enough to know that the American people, when pushed far enough, push back. And I think we are right in the middle of that moment. Don't doubt me. Thank you for spending this hour with me. As always, it is an honor. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.